Welcome to a quiet sanctuary of thought and reflection. May the grace of the Almighty be with you as we embark on a deeply profound journey into the human soul. Today we illuminate the mind of the rarest psychological archetype among us, the INFJ. In a world that constantly equates volume with power and aggression with victory, these gentle souls walk a vastly different path. They are often perceived as merely calm, endlessly kind, and profoundly thoughtful. They abhor unnecessary drama, they do not actively seek out conflict, and they will go to great lengths to preserve harmony. However, to mistake their desire for peace as a sign of weakness would be a monumental error. In truth, these individuals possess one of the most strategic, resilient, and unbreakable minds you will ever encounter. What truly sets them apart is not how they wage war, but how they master the art of peace. When faced with malice, betrayal, or manipulation, they do not resort to shouting or bitter arguments. Instead, they employ quiet, meticulously calculated maneuvers that are nearly impossible for the untrained eye to detect. They are deeply intuitive architects of their own boundaries. They read the human heart with astonishing speed, noticing the subtle emotional currents, the hidden intentions, and the unspoken patterns that the rest of the world entirely misses. In this exploration, we will gracefully uncover the 6 silent tactics these individuals utilize to outsmart their adversaries without ever uttering a single word. These are not malicious tricks, nor are they petty games born of ego. They are elegant survival tools. They are the shields that protect their inner sanctuary, allowing them to defend their sacred space in a manner that honors their deep empathy and quiet strength. If you possess this beautiful personality, you may already be deploying these strategies guided by your own innate intuition. If you have ever simply walked away from a toxic presence, choosing peace over a chaotic battle, please know that this is never a weakness. It is a divine strategy. Let us delve into the first of these profound methods, the mirror technique. When an individual attempts to manipulate or assert unwarranted control, the INFJ rarely pushes back with aggressive language. Instead, they transform themselves into a pristine, emotional mirror. They simply reflect the aggressor's exact behavior right back toward them. It is a brilliant, entirely nonviolent form of self-defense. This reflection tactic is devastatingly effective because these intuitive souls are the universe's natural observers. They sit back and watch how someone speaks, how they move, and how they treat the vulnerable among them. They possess a God-given ability to notice the exact moment when a person's sweet words completely fail to match their bitter actions. They pick up on the darkest shifts in tone, the awkward timing of a forced smile, and the heavy, toxic energy entering a room. When they realize that someone is playing deceitful games, they do not immediately call down righteous judgment. Instead, they begin to subtly reflect that exact energy. If an adversary begins to give them short, dismissive answers, the intuitive soul will simply return short, neutral answers. If the manipulator becomes passive-aggressive, hoping to spark a dramatic emotional reaction, the INFJ refuses to ignite. They offer absolute, unshakable neutrality. Over time, this flawless mirroring causes immense discomfort within the adversary. The manipulator begins to feel the coldness of their own behavior, though they rarely possess the self-awareness to understand why the interaction has suddenly become so remarkably hollow. Through this mirror technique, the INFJ protects the sanctity of their own heart. It creates an invisible, impenetrable fortress of distance without ever initiating open warfare. It sends a silent but undeniable message that says, "I see you entirely, and I politely decline to participate in your darkness." This strategy places the heavy burden of consequence squarely back upon the shoulders of the person who initiated the disrespect. Those who thrive on testing boundaries and feeding on the emotional reactions of others find themselves entirely starved of oxygen. They receive nothing back but the barren landscape of their own toxic energy. The intuitive soul uses this method with immense grace. They do not wish to inflict pain, for their hearts are inherently geared toward healing and light. They are simply acting as stewards of their own peace. When faced with public attempts to undermine their dignity, they will not engage in an undignified brawl. They will let the aggressor speak, and then calmly reflect that behavior, allowing the surrounding community to slowly see the truth without the INFJ ever needing to mount a defense. It is a beautiful preservation of human dignity. The second profound tactic is the deployment of strategic silence. We live in an era filled with endless deafening noise, where people speak desperately merely to fill the empty air. But the INFJ treats words as precious commodities. Sometimes the most powerful word they can offer is no word at all. This silence is never empty. It is pregnant with meaning, heavy with observation, and it is an incredibly formidable tactic. When an adversary aggressively pushes for a reaction, expecting tears, anger, or a frantic defense, the intuitive soul simply offers absolute quiet. This unexpected response completely derails the aggressor. People with malicious intent often use their words as jagged weapons, hoping to strike a nerve. But when the target does not react, there is simply no battlefield to fight upon. The person pushing for conflict ends up violently swinging their sword at the wind, and eventually, the sheer weight of that silence causes them to collapse under their own hostility. It is crucial to understand that this strategic silence is not a trauma response or a fearful shutting down. It is a highly controlled, deeply conscious choice. While the adversary is wasting their breath arguing in circles, the INFJ retreats into the quiet sanctuary of their mind. They are actively collecting data, waiting for the toxic patterns to fully reveal themselves. This silence creates a profound sense of uncertainty for the attacker. It forces the enemy to sit alone with the echoes of their own ugly words. If they were expecting to make the intuitive soul feel guilt or shame, they receive absolutely nothing but a vast, terrifying blank canvas. This tactic is used masterfully in everyday life. If someone attempts to spread vicious gossip, the INFJ merely looks at them with quiet, unblinking eyes. If someone lies to their face, they do not indignantly correct the falsehood. They simply file that lie away in their mental archives. This deprives the enemy of the drama they so desperately crave. It grants the INFJ the luxury of time, allowing their emotions to beautifully settle before deciding on any future course of action. It is the epitome of patience and inner strength. The third brilliant defense mechanism is the profound ability to read between the lines. These deep thinkers almost never accept human behavior at its mere surface value. They are perpetually looking beneath the shallow waters, observing the terrifying undertow. They analyze what was deliberately left unsaid, the microscopic tightening of a jaw, the subtle shift in a vocal cadence, and the dangerous tension hiding just behind a charismatic smile. While the rest of society is easily fooled by loud declarations of innocence, the INFJ is quietly tracking the hidden truth. This is not merely a fleeting gut feeling. It is a highly sophisticated internal processing system. They weave together tiny fragments of human behavior over long periods. A compliment that felt unnaturally rehearsed, an apology that lacked the warmth of true repentance, or a sudden, unexplained shift in loyalty. Not a single drop of this information escapes their soulful gaze. Their minds meticulously collect these seemingly disconnected puzzle pieces and silently construct the complete, often tragic, picture of the person standing before them. By the time a deceitful person finally decides to reveal their true malicious intentions, the intuitive soul is entirely unsurprised. They have known the truth for months. When they sense that someone is operating from a place of darkness or manipulation, their internal energy gracefully shifts. They do not announce their departure. They simply stop sharing the precious treasures of their inner world. They limit access to their vulnerabilities and systematically begin to gather more quiet evidence. The manipulator may arrogance themselves into believing they are successfully deceiving the INFJ, completely unaware that the drawbridge to the castle has already been silently raised. This extraordinary skill keeps them out of dangerous emotional traps. When an enemy attempts to bait them into a screaming match or twist their words, the INFJ remains entirely anchored in divine calmness. They know that the harsh words being spoken are merely a distraction from the real, hidden agenda. This intuitive grace is exactly why it is nearly impossible to successfully lie to these individuals. Even the most charming deceivers eventually falter under their quiet, knowing gaze. The fifth tactic is perhaps the most intellectually formidable of all. We call it intellectual dissection. When an INFJ feels deeply threatened, or when they witness profound injustice, they do not merely react with a flurry of blind emotion. They retreat into the quiet laboratory of their mind, and they begin to dissect the enemy's psychology with surgical precision. They break down the aggressor's life patterns, their deeply rooted insecurities, and their flawed logic, until they understand exactly what kind of broken spirit they are dealing with. Through silent observation, they map out the enemy's emotional triggers. They can clearly see the childhood wounds, the desperate craving for validation, and the pathetic fears that drive the adversary to act with such malice. Once they possess this profound psychological blueprint, they know exactly what to do. If the enemy desperately seeks to control every situation, the INFJ will calmly hand them just enough rope to inevitably entangle themselves. If the enemy requires constant, desperate validation, the INFJ will gracefully withdraw all attention, starving the ego until it collapses. It is vital to recognize that this deep intellectual dissection is never driven by a cruel desire for vengeance. The INFJ soul does not harbor malice. This tactic is strictly a defense mechanism, a way of establishing peace by thoroughly neutralizing a threat. By fully understanding the brokenness of their enemy, the INFJ eliminates the element of surprise. Nothing the abuser does can catch them off guard, because every move was already predicted. This incredible foresight brings a wave of divine calmness to the intuitive soul. Instead of reacting out of righteous anger, they remain beautifully grounded in the grace of understanding. They refuse to grant the enemy the chaotic drama they so desperately seek. They handle the toxic situation entirely on their own terms, remaining perfectly anchored in their values. The aggressor is left completely bewildered, unaware that they have been studied, understood, and calmly dismantled without a single voice ever being raised. Finally, we arrive at the sixth and undeniably the most permanent tactic. It is a phenomenon widely known as the INFJ door slam. This is the absolute final boundary. It is not an explosive burst of anger, nor is it a theatrical display of resentment. It is as calm, quiet, and profoundly permanent as the closing of heavy oak doors in an ancient cathedral. This event only occurs when a person has violated the sacred trust of the INFJ one too many times, crossing a line from which there is simply no return. The intuitive soul is remarkably forgiving by nature. They offer infinite grace, second chances, and deep compassion for the flaws of others. But when they finally realize that a relationship is irreparably toxic, when the spiritual cost of maintaining the connection becomes too great a burden on their soul, they do not argue. They simply walk away. They sever all emotional contact, completely stop responding, and permanently remove the individual from the sanctuary of their heart. By the time this door finally shuts, the INFJ has already completed their grieving process in absolute silence. The decision is final, and the devastating silence that follows speaks far louder than 1,000 angry words. The extraordinary power of the INFJ does not lie in aggression or volume. Their true strength is woven into the delicate fabric of their silent observation, their boundless empathy, and their unwavering commitment to inner peace. They are the quiet guardians of their own souls. If you find yourself resonating with these profound traits, know that your gentle nature is not a vulnerability, but rather a magnificent shield. May the Almighty grant you the continued wisdom to protect your precious energy. Cherish your intuition, for it is a divine gift. If you have found comfort and understanding in our time together today, we gently invite you to carry this peace forward, and perhaps share this quiet sanctuary with another soul who may need to hear it. Remember, true power rarely needs to announce its presence, and the deepest victories are often won without ever saying a single word. May peace and grace walk alongside you today and always.